What's up? Welcome to another strange, not quite our normal day of recording Cinema Royale, the close of our best of 2020 series. Hopefully, you guys have been checking out the website, www.punchdrunkcritics.com. We've got all kinds of best of 2020 lists there for you. Best of 2020 from all of our writers. Travis, of course, always has his own list that's much longer than everybody else's. Uh, an interesting one we'll hopefully talk about a little later. Movies that we forgot were released in 2020. The worst movies of 2020. Any other wrap up articles you did that I missed that I'm not thinking of? Let's see.
I did some I always do my overlooked films
Hmm.
list that was on there as well this year. Did We did a few things here. I haven't done the best acting and actress performances in a few years. So basically, yeah, it was just our best of. Did our worst of show last week,
Hmm.
worst of the year show, and then of course the group list and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I always do my list separate from everybody else's because I feel superior. So I always do mine away from everybody else.
Yeah,
So
well, you can't lower
no, I'm
yourself
just
with us,
kidding.
Phil. I
That's
mean,
not
geez.
that is not true. It's just
No.
I started doing my list before we started doing a group one, and it just kind of kept going. That's all. That's the only reason.
Well, no. Let's be honest. I mean, you see more movies than anybody here, so you'd have a wider insight. You do your 20 best movies. We do our three. So yeah, so there's best and worst 2020 movies I forgot were released in 2020. 20 best movies of 2020. Hopefully next
That was
year we
fun,
can.
by the way.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
fun, by the way. The movies I forgot came out in 2020 list was a lot of fun, and I literally wrote it in maybe about 7 minutes because it just just kind of popped up in my head that
yeah.
somebody had brought up. I think it was Bloodshot, and I was like, I literally forgot that movie came out in this year. Like I really did.
Well,
And then I was just like, what else did I forget came out this year? And I was like, oh, here's a few, and I just rattled off a few of them in my head and said a couple of things.
I was
I
really
thought that was
glad for your
funny. So
list. I think everybody knows about my memory at this point, but there is one of my best movies of 2020 was on your movies I forgot list. So I'm glad it just shows how good my memory actually is. Um, just
they
to
weren't
run those.
all bad, and I said this in the post. I was like, these aren't all bad movies.
Mhm.
Like there's some of them are perfectly fine, but it was like one like incredible stinker on there, but there was but most of them were fine. But it's just like if this was been such a crazy year, it's felt like 5 years all packed into one year, basically. And
Yeah.
it's like just some shit that came out, just like it just left my mind, man. It just went down the memory hole, and they were gone. And I was just like, oh shit, this was in 2020, wasn't it? God
Yeah.
damn.
Well,
Oh
let's
no,
run
it
the
was the
list down
Grudge.
real
It wasn't
quick.
Bloodshot. It was the Grudge. It was the Grudge. And I think you and I may have been the ones who were talking about it. But it was
Yep.
the Grudge that came out. That was like, oh, that shit was in 2020.
And so you got The Grudge, Like a Boss with Tiffany Haddish, Rose Byrne, and Salma Hayek. Gretel and Hansel, which I
That's
still haven't seen and really need to watch. The Last Thing He
actually good.
Wanted with Ben Affleck and
That's
Anne
the stinker.
Hathaway.
That's the
Onward,
stinker. Yep.
Onward,
I swore I did those because I remember I did interviews for Onward, and I
mhm.
thought they were last year. I
Yeah,
swear I thought they were last year,
and I
but
probably my
no, they were early this year.
probably my favorite line in this article that Travis put together for Uncorked. Oh yeah, this was the Black Folks Drink Wine 2 movie.
Yeah,
Oh, that was funny.
pretty much.
And then Bloodshot was on the list. So, but those are what we
Yeah,
forgot. There were a bunch that we didn't forget. At least 10. I said Travis got 20 on his article, but we're gonna do 10 today. Our 10 best movies of 2020. And I don't know exactly how you did your list, but I always like to preempt my list by saying these are the movies that I like. These are my favorite movies. Not these aren't
absolutely,
the best Oscar winning type movies of 2020. So
absolutely. I always feel like whenever I do this list, I always feel like I should change it to favorite rather than best. I know a lot of other critics who do that. They change theirs. They have theirs as favorite rather than best. I've always just done it as best because favorite or not,
mhm.
they're best to me.
Right.
So I figure it works just fine. And
Yeah.
I think people I like to think people are smart enough to know the difference. But then again, maybe not because I always get the messages and the emails from people afterwards after I post stuff like this. It's like, why wasn't this in there? And it's like,
because we're
Just because
different
it ain't
people.
in there don't mean I didn't like it. I
Right.
mean,
Well,
like the one I got all this year, ever since was why aren't any of the small acts films in there? You know, the Steve
mhm.
McQueen films. And I'm like, because I don't want to. I don't. They're fine movies, but I don't want to watch any of them again. For the
Right.
most part, like they're good movies. I don't think I want to watch them though. Like not
Yeah.
again. I just don't.
Not in a year with this
So
kind of emotional drain on it already. Um, but yeah, I mean, and that's why I do the disclaimer because the social feeds and everything blow up with, what do you mean XYZ was the best of the year? Well, to me, it was. Talking to a guy
yeah,
that loves the movie Bloodsport. I mean, what do you want me to
yeah.
say?
Somebody took offense that we put coffee and cream on our worst of list.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well,
That's fine.
they
I'm
can
glad you liked it.
they can yeah. Everybody's got something.
Everybody, exactly. So let's start with your first one, John. John, what's
Sure.
your
So are we
first?
going 10 to
Best of
1,
the
1 to
year.
10, or any order?
It doesn't any order. Doesn't matter.
All right. So my 10 is a double space, and it's the mix of Old Guard and the Extraction. Netflix had an amazing action summer. I know a lot of people
You're
put
not
the
going to
Old Guard
include
as
Project Power in there.
no, but I thought about Six Underground, but after the first 20 minutes, it just kind of goes
Wasn't
somewhere
that
else.
last year?
No, that was the beginning of the summer. I
What?
think, unless I lost my mind. No, that was the
I
beginning of
think
the summer.
no. Six Underground had to have been 2019.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, come on.
I'm
No,
double
no, no.
checking. Six Underground. Oh, damn. Maybe you're right. 2019 National. But it was
I'm glad I was right
December.
about that one.
It was December 13th, 2019. I was thinking it was May for some reason. And my time calendar is all fucked up. I have no idea what's going on. Um,
I was about to say,
okay,
there's
well.
no way in hell.
Well,
That
then
was
I'm glad I didn't put it as the threesome here. So the Old Guard, Extraction, and Project Power were the threefold action films for Netflix this summer. Project Power was fine. I liked it. It didn't have as much action as I expected. It was a really neat concept that was played out in a really grounded way. I thought it was cool. But Old Guard and Extraction gets my number 10.
yeah. No, those are good picks. I liked both of those. I liked all of the blockbuster films that Netflix did this summer. I thought they did a really good job of filling that gap for us.
Yeah, yeah, for
My
sure.
first film, I guess my number 10, was The Vast of Night, sci-fi film that was on Amazon Prime. Just kind of came out of nowhere, had this real retro vibe. It feels like a paranormal sci-fi movie from the 1960s, and it's about this switchboard operator and this um, uh, a radio DJ at
Mm-hmm.
this small town who uncover some weird radio waves, and they could possibly clue them into an alien invasion. All sorts of weirdness going on in this. It's directed by Andrew Patterson, and the movie just has this great classic vibe to it. It's shot really well. It's spooky as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Great use of sound and light. I just love this movie to death. It's by far the best pure sci-fi movie that came out this year. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, that was
I
your
recommend it to everybody who asks me about the best movies of the year. I always say The Vast of Night is like the first one.
that was my favorite recommendation of yours this year. When like I think it was even before it came out. Maybe you reviewed it, and we were talking about it on the show. And I have always had a soft spot for that 50s, 60s atomic age,
Yeah.
alien beast movie, and it does capture that perfectly. The only other movie that I can think captures that time frame, and it's more about the real time frame, not the movie time frame, is Matinee, which is always one of my favorite
Yep.
underground movies of all time.
Yep.
Next on my list, it was tough. It was a great year for horror. It's weird. People are always attracted to what's going on in the world. You'd think they need an escape. We've had a horror show of a year, but horror movies came out and really did a big thing. David Cronenberg's Possessor was really really good. It takes something that we've seen done a million times. Possession movies seem to be the go-to for low budget horror these days. You see 100 of them on Netflix. He managed to take Possessor, add the Cronenberg twist to it, and make it something unique in a field where everything's the same. So I really like Possessor.
I'm just gonna pick up on that because Possessor was my number 8 film of the year. Love this movie. I spoke with Brandon Cronenberg. Did an interview with him. Spoke with both Andrew Riseborough and Christopher Abbott about it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I love about Possession is the film I saw at Sundance, and my top 10 has 6 Sundance movies on it, which goes to show how good of
Yeah,
a
you had a
feat.
good year last year.
Yeah, and I had been complaining that it really wasn't that great of a year. I was totally wrong. And if you look at my top 20, there's at least like almost a dozen. I mean, it's just a lot of Sundance films in there. My top 10 is six of them. Possessor is one of them. And what I like about it, and I talked with Brandon about this, we both have this affinity for spy movies.
Hmm.
And this is both a body horror and a spy film, an espionage film. And the thing that we both really like about spy movies, and we both clicked on this, um, is the way going deep cover affects you mentally. Like you lose your sense of self. You become like you no longer have your own identity anymore. You kind of co-opt the identities of the people that
Like
you
Donnie
that
Brasco
you
and
pretend to be. And this movie takes that and it ramps it up and adds a horror twist to it. I think is just really great. The performances by Riceborough and Abbott are so complex because they have to be parts of each other
hmm
throughout the entire movie. It is so weird. Like the performances are so weird because of that. Like she has to move and act like Christopher Abbott. He has to kind of move and act like her and act, during aspects of the film. It's just really strange, and it must have been so complicated to do on set. In fact, I know it was as part of the interview. So if you haven't gone and seen that, you should look that up on punchdrunkcritics.com, but or on our YouTube channel. But yeah, I love Possessor. I'm right there with you, man.
and I'm glad you had it on your list because I keep fucking up and saying David Cronenberg. Obviously, it's Brandon Cronenberg, his son. So I'm glad you had it there so I can
And that was
correct
his first
myself.
movie. That was his first movie in almost a decade. I mean, his first movie was Antiviral,
Hmm.
which was a
I
breakout
loved
hit
that too.
almost a decade ago, which is
Hmm.
also at Sundance. So, good comeback for him.
Yeah, yeah. So all right, next on my list is another horror movie, Saint Maud. I don't know. Did you see Saint
I never
Maud?
did see that. I never did see that.
Yeah, Saint Maud was really really good. I mean, it's in the same kind of realm, but vastly different. Some body horror. It's got probably the most haunting or effective final scene of any movie I've seen this year.
Huh?
It's got that like Roman Catholic aura to it all, and don't make any gross jokes. You know what I'm talking about, not that. It's got this real aura to it. It's haunting. It's completely effective. It's just awesome, and I can't pronounce her name. It's Morphid, Mo.
Morfid Clark.
There you go. Amazing. She's.
I like her.
I hope to see her in a lot more stuff, but this is, kind of low
What is she in
on
that?
the.
Isn't she in that Amazon Lord of the Rings series that's coming up?
She looks like she could be an elf, so
I
yeah.
believe
I mean,
she. I
that would be
believe she's
awesome.
playing like the young Galadriel or something.
Actually, she looks a lot like that, so that would make sense. Let me find out. What did
Yeah.
people do on radio shows before they had the internet
Yeah,
and
well, I
IMDb in
mean,
front of them?
you had producers and researchers who did that kind of stuff who were just.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's right. Yeah, you're right. She's. It doesn't say her role, but she was. And she was also in. Oh, that's not the same one I'm thinking of. There was a Dracula miniseries. Oh yeah, this is the one that was horrible on Netflix. Anyway, yeah, she's in. She's in that.
Cool. Yeah, I knew her name from something else that was big. My next film, I guess my number nine would be. Speaking of directors who uh, made a breakthrough movie and then came back a decade later. My number nine is The Nest from
Ooh,
Sean Durkin.
yeah.
Sean Durkin, who debuted almost a decade ago with Martha Marcy May Marlene,
That was a
and
decade.
it's about at least 8 or 9 years.
Elizabeth Olsen came to us
That's
9 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, I know, man. It's crazy how time
Mm.
flies, man. But yeah, I think he and he and Cronenberg may have debuted in the same year, possibly at Sundance. But yeah, he directed Martha Marcy May Marlene. He comes back with The Nest, his first movie since then. Stars Jude Law, Carrie Coon, and basically it's about social climbers
Mm-hmm.
and what they're willing to do to reach the status they think they deserve, and what they'll do, and kind of how it affects their families. These are parents with two kids, and the dad played by Law, who's he's sort of a shady type, but
Mm-hmm.
he's willing to do anything, put his whole family at risk in order to reach the goal that he thinks he believes he deserves, his whole family deserves, and the whole family crumbles as a result of his ambitions. Um, Durkin manages to kind of get that same paranoid energy that he had in Martha Marcy May Marlene in a completely different story, about um, about family and the economy and loyalty and all sorts of stuff. It's a really good film. I loved it at Sundance. I love it now. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check that one
Yeah, it got a lot of parallels to Martha Mars. I couldn't say it then. I can't say it now. You know which one I'm talking about.
out.
With the idea of the cults and the family and
Yeah,
loyalty and where you belong and feeling like you belong.
yeah.
To round out my top or bottom five is Mank, a movie that we
Mm.
reviewed just a few weeks back, and I wasn't drawn into it to that level. And I've since watched it two more times, and it just grows on you immensely as you go through. I mean, it's exactly, I think I said that we talked about that. I'm just in love with anything that's not quite, the golden age of Hollywood being the 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, especially life in LA around that time. And the fact that it couples both of those in there, and then you have Gary Oldman, whose performance, one of the only performances I've seen that gets better. Usually, every time you watch a performance, there's less surprise, there's less that comes around the corner, and his performance actually gets better every time you see it.
Yeah,
So that shot its way up my top list to number six.
good pick. My next one, which I think is my number seven, so I don't know how you're at number five already. That's
Oh,
weird.
did you ever do nine? Because you were on nine, and then you skipped to
Well,
eight for
I've kept
Possessor.
going. I've kept going. I skipped I skipped. I went from 10 to 8 because you and I had the same 8,
Hmm.
and then I went back to 9, and now I'm doing 7. So
Maybe I can't count. That's
I
always
think you missed
possible.
one. I think you missed one.
Possibly.
But anyway, I think you might have missed one. It's all right. My next one is my number 7 is Black Bear, another
Mm.
Sundance film. And this is one of those weird sort of Sundance experiences, those movies that you go to that you don't really know much about.
Right.
But all really needed to know was that it had Aubrey Plaza, Christopher Abbott, and Sarah Gayton. That's all I needed to know.
Hmm.
And so I went in there to see it. And it reminded me of the experience I had. I went to see R100, which is one of my all-time favorite Sundance experiences,
Hmm.
because R100 and Black Bear are similar in that they're movies that don't explain shit to you. Like they don't explain nothing to you, to the audience.
Hmm.
They just throw you into some weirdness, and you just gotta kind of sink or swim. And it always does something about halfway through that pulls the rug out from under you. And this movie does that. And basically, the setup is that you have this woman, a filmmaker, who goes to a place out in a retreat out in the woods to hang out with two people, also artists themselves, and they're in a relationship. And the woman is pregnant, and during the midst of their conversations, they just have this weird, not quite a love triangle, but like a power struggle of emotion goes on between the three of them. And about halfway through the movie, everything flips. Like
Hmm.
everything flips, and weird stuff starts happening. There are black bears around, and there's just craziness upon craziness upon craziness piles up on this. And people start acting strange, and it does not explain anything to you. That's never the point. It's like it's just I don't know. And I loved every second of it. I didn't want it to be explained to me. I didn't want any of it.
Right.
I just loved seeing Aubrey Plaza in this kind of role where she gets to play literally run the entire gamut of emotions.
She's
Uh,
much better of an actor than people give her credit for. She's been a
oh
lot of
yeah,
times she's been cast as either the smartass, the outsider, or the girlfriend, and it's
yeah.
just she's so
She's
good.
had to branch out beyond all that stuff,
Hmm.
and she's really done a great job. But Black Bear is my number 7 on the list. It's definitely a weird one, but if you're down for that kind of stuff, you're gonna like it. I think.
I mean, it's been popping up all over the place as people do their year-end stuff. So you're not alone
Yeah.
on that for sure. And I love when filmmakers trust their audience, to as long as they're building a story that you can follow along with. Like Tenet, that is one of my problems with Tenet. Is it like it seemed like he really loved that top spinning controversy at the end of Inception and wanted to make it more difficult for people to understand. But the ones that just drop you in and assume that you can make your way in this world, there's something special about those movies. So you're right.
I think Christopher Nolan's problem is that he forgets that he's trying to entertain people sometimes,
Mhm.
and that he's so intent on doing whatever is in his head that he forgets that he still needs to tell a story to people that they can relate to and then they can
Right.
understand.
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest problem with them. Is like I like Tenet, like I like
Mhm.
Tenet fine, but it's just, but is there a real story there that I give a shit about? Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't. Is there a single character in there other than maybe, um, what's her name's character? Um, you know,
Elizabeth Debicki.
Elizabeth. How the hell did I forget her name?
I
Considering
don't know. I'm surprised actually.
how much I've been crushing on her all year. How I
Right.
forget her name. Other than her, is there a single character in there that I really give a shit about? Not really. I mean, none of them have a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
I mean, other than trying to solve this thing, none of them have anything going on.
Yeah, it's all around the gimmick almost to a point. And I'm interested to see if Elizabeth Debicki comes up in the rest of your list, because I know there was a movie that you really dug that she was in. I did
No,
skip one. I
the
found
answer is
out what it was.
she's not. She's not.
Burnt Orange Heresy didn't show back up.
No, no. I like that movie because of her for the most part, but
Oh,
no, that movie didn't make my top 20.
for some reason I seem to remember you gushing about it when we were
I
reviewing it.
did gush about it. It's a good movie, but
Not
remember,
best.
I also had to watch it twice. The
Oh yeah,
first time I watched it, I was like, man, it's kind of dull, kind of flat. And
right.
then I watched it when it came out again months later because its release got fucked up by the pandemic, like everything else did this year. So
Right.
they re-released it months later, and I watched it again. I was like, this shit's kind of tight, actually,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely stunning. So
So the one I forgot is it kind of fits in with what we're talking about, and directors trusting their audience. And I also like when they make you question what you think is happening. And so my skipped one, which I 7 or 6 maybe, was Relic. Did you get a chance to see Relic?
oh yeah,
Oh, it's Emily Mortimer and her daughter move in with her ailing mom, right? And the way that everything slowly deteriorates, the way that you can't tell if it's a metaphor for dementia, and even if it was a metaphor for dementia, how amazing of a metaphor that is, and just watching everything slowly crumble and decay and break down, and just everything that rolls around it. Emily Mortimer, somebody that I always thought was talented, but I didn't really see anything that blew me away.
another
And
one
she was
I
just
I
magnetic in
crushed on
this.
pretty hard for her too.
Yeah, I mean, she's just
Crushed pretty hard for
magnetic in
her.
this. So that's the one I skipped that I liked.
Yeah, and it's her and Bella Heathcote, who is another one
Mm-hmm.
that ranks up there pretty high.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that film too. It was if you like that one, I don't know if you saw Amulet or not, but I feel
I
like
no,
they kind of make a pretty good tandem of movies. You might want to check that one out too.
nice.
Um, my next one, well, I guess my number six is Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Uh, and the big surprise for me all year was that I had an Andy Samberg movie in my top 10 because I can't stand Andy Samberg.
I
I,
couldn't until Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I can't stand him. I think he's annoying as shit.
Mm-hmm.
But he is absolutely great in this movie, which came at just the right time at the beginning of summer.
Mm-hmm.
The whole year was shit. Movies were shit too. Movies were shit too. Movies were
Right.
depressing as hell, like for a long time until the summer. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
were really awful. I mean, because Hollywood didn't know what to do at this point. Most things had already begun moving, and the stuff that we were getting was nothing but indie stuff that was mostly depressing. It would have been depressing whether it was a pandemic or not.
Right.
And then Palm Springs comes along, and it's just like, here, have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
Here, have some fun with this silly little time loop romance with Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti having fun and dancing and trying to avoid a killer J.K. Simmons and just have some fun with it.
Yeah.
It was just this breath of fresh air. Another Sundance movie, I might add,
Mm-hmm.
had the biggest distribution deal ever actually coming out of Sundance. Um, Great film. I could watch it over and over and over again. In fact, I have. It's just that good. So yeah, Palm Springs,
Nice.
great.
Um, okay, next on my list, and this is the one that you thankfully reminded me of with your forgotten movies of 2021. We've talked a lot
That is
about.
that the movie that is on my forgotten list is
Yeah.
also on your best of list.
Yeah.
Should tell people a lot about
Yeah, well, I mean, this
about.
is another case, and this is now to be fair, this movie came out at the very beginning of the pandemic, and we all know that that pandemic both seemed like 2 seconds and 20 years. So anybody can be forgiven for messing up time this year. But onward, we've talked a lot on here
Oh,
about how affected we both are by father-son stories.
yep.
This was, a brother story, a father-son story that was in a magical, mystical fantasy land that still felt like it was right next door. This is Pixar at their best, knowing how to relate to people, how to convey emotional tone, and how to really just dig into your heartstrings and pull it out. I was really pleasantly surprised by Onward, especially since I didn't see it. Whoop, sorry. I didn't see it until a couple weeks after it had been released, and I'd heard a lot of negative blowback on it, and I was blown away. It's up there as one of my favorite Pixar movies.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate this movie by any means. I just kind of forgot about it. I
Yeah,
mean, there were a lot of really great animated movies that came out this year.
right.
Favorite was by far Wolfwalkers, but yeah, I just kind of forgot about Onward, and because Soul came out right at the end of the year too, and I just kind of
Mhm.
it made me forget about anything else that Pixar had done.
Yeah,
So that's why that was on my list. My number five is another Sundance movie. It's Charm City Kings. Charm City Kings, which was for a while my favorite movie that came out of Sundance this year.
mhm.
Um, Jesus Christ, because Charm City Kings is a dirt bike movie set in Baltimore. So when I went to see it at Sundance, the reason why I went to see it is because it was set in Baltimore.
Mhm.
Because I felt like some sort of, DMV obligation to go and see it. No, I mean it's true, but I did. It's one of
Yeah,
the reasons
yeah.
why I did it, and I knew that when I came back and I was going to have to talk about the things I saw, people were going to ask me about Charm City Kings,
Mhm.
and it's basically a narrative spin-off of the documentary 12 O'clock Boys, which is about black motorcycle riders,
Mhm.
and that's what Charm City Kings is about. It's set in Baltimore. It follows a kid named Mouse who wants to join the Midnight Clique, which is a group of black motorcycle riders who are also involved in crime in the
Mhm.
city. And it's a basic um, coming of age story slash, uh, dealing with the law, choosing between the law and what's right kind of story.
Mhm.
But it has terrific performances. The main thing that's great about it is that it's just plain old authentic as hell. From everywhere it shoots in Baltimore, from the people who are like the real life writers,
Mhm.
to the performances from the cast, including Meek Mill, who was amazing here. And if he wanted to give the rapping to just act, I think he could do it. Um,
That was gonna be my main question for you, was how was Meek?
he's
Because I saw him on
fantastic.
the list and
He's fantastic, man. He's so
wow.
good in this. The movie got bounced around the schedule a lot because of the pandemic, and was eventually picked up by HBO Max.
Mhm.
Some people were upset about that, but I was happy about it because it means more people will be able to see it easier.
Right.
But despite the fact that it's a familiar premise, like I said, authenticity in the performances and some of this, just the sheer grit of it. There's a lot of violence. There's no easy answers to it either. So in it as well. So yeah, Charm City Kings definitely a movie people should check out.
Nice. Now, is it out now? Is it available now
Oh
on
yeah,
HBO
yeah, it's
Max?
out. It's out on HBO Max right
I might check that out. You remember right after Fast and Furious in the early
now.
part of the 2000s,
No, I
where there
don't.
was there was a run of
Nope.
like bad guy motorcycle. It was like the BMX movies of the 80s.
Yeah.
Um, Next on mine, Sound of Metal. Riz Ahmed showing that he is here to stay. He's amazing. I mean, just
Was he
look,
going somewhere? Was he supposed to be going somewhere that I didn't know about?
Hollywood is short-lived love, my friend. You know that. Somebody can be on everything. I mean, let's just look at Sam Worthington to know that. Who, you ask? Go back to 2010, and Sam Worthington was the man. And now, he's just thanking God that James Cameron had four avatars up his sleeve. Anyway, Riz Ahmed, who a lot of people came to know from Star Wars Rogue One, other stuff like that, I guess. But he
I mean,
plays
he
a
did do
drummer.
Venom. He did do Venom also, and
Well, I said
you
people
know,
would know him from, so that kind of takes that out.
Venom made $800 million. People know him from Venom.
I know, and I was a Venom apologist, so I don't know why I'm talking shit about it now. Um, it's just an excellently acted movie. Riz Ahmed playing a drummer who's losing his hearing, or lost his hearing, and there's something about that, like the emotional journey when somebody loses their identity, basically, like the thing that they identify themselves as, their core. When somebody loses that, there's something about that story that is done often, but not often done well. And the whole journey with him trying to deal with it, understand it. There's a lot of great performances in that movie, but if you ask me, it's all Riz Ahmed.
Well, I mean, this was my number 13 movie of the year. I mean, the thing I liked about it was that it tells the kind of story that you're talking about, where a person kind of loses their identity, but it also frames it in the context of an addiction story,
Hmm.
because he's an addict, but he's also an addict for the life that he's lived.
Right.
He's addicted to the music. He's addicted to the lifestyle. He's addicted to his girlfriend. He's addicted to all of that, and he has to overcome all of that to become essentially a new person and to live a new kind of life. And I love the way that he captures that quest, that desperation that he kind of has to cling to what he had. But also the way it was, and I can't remember the director's name. I'm sure if I could click over and look at it, but I'm not
Darius Martyr.
very smart. Thank you. I love the way he portrays his loss of sound,
Hmm.
the sound mixing and sound editing. In this movie is phenomenal. Yeah, it's a really good movie, man. I like that one.
For sure.
My number four is Birds of Prey. It is the only superhero movie on my list.
What a year.
There
I don't
weren't
have
a lot
any.
of them. There really weren't very many of them this year to begin
Hmm.
with. It was basically this, We Can Be Heroes, and Wonder Woman 1984. Uh, but Birds of Prey would have probably might have been on my list no matter what. I mean, it came out really in the early part of the year. Its release got messed up by the pandemic, like everything else.
Right.
Um, and I just love this movie for how wild and just kind of untamed it is.
It's
It's a
fun and
lot
it
of
doesn't care
fun.
why. It doesn't care what you think.
It's just bonkers, man, and it's deliberate, and it's just this crew of girls kicking ass and being funny and being sexy, and you know what? That's all I wanted from Birds of Prey. That's really all I wanted from it. But Margot Robbie managed to also make Harley Quinn a character that we can give a shit about beyond
Hmm.
her just being crazy. She actually adds some layers to her, and which is surprising considering who Harley Quinn is.
Hmm.
You got Ewan McGregor as this fantastic version of Black Mask, um, this pompous, satanic version of Black Mask is just a whole lot of fun.
Hmm.
It's even got bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches on it, and I don't know how can you not like a movie where the entire plot is driven by someone losing their bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich? If there's not a better way to start a movie, that's like the kind of that's literally the kind of dumb shit I would do if I were a screenwriter.
Oh
I would
yeah.
have somebody go nuts after losing their bacon, egg, and cheese
Have
sandwich.
you ever
Lord
lost a bacon,
knows
egg, and cheese
when
sandwich?
I've messed up my bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich or accidentally dropped it on the floor, the rest of my day is shit. You better
Yeah.
watch out. So I can't think of anything better than that. It's just such a fun movie, man.
I mean, I
And
think
I,
that.
I hate the fact that it didn't do as well at the box offices as it probably should have. I
Mhm.
feel like there is that usual anti-feminine backlash that seems to affect certain types of women's movies,
Yeah.
female-led movies. Not all of them, but certain ones. Women in groups, those movies tend to not do as well because men don't want to see them. You put Wonder Woman out there, yeah, it's fine. There's one woman who looks sexy and she goes out there and she kicks ass. That's fine. You put a bunch of women together and have them kick ass, men don't like it. There's
I
something weird
don't
about
get
it.
that.
I
I
don't
never
get it
understood
either, but
that.
that's kind of the way it is, and I don't understand it either. But that's been the dynamic. Now, I'm glad it's found its audience in digital though. Like
Yeah.
it's found its audience. People want a sequel really bad. I do too. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but you know what? It's a great entry in the DCEU no matter what. So I'm glad it's there. I love Birds of Prey.
Yeah. I mean, two things that I'll say about Birds of Prey. Number one, um, Margot Robbie can't be understated as Harley Quinn. I mean, when you have a character in I mean, this looks like it would be a kids movie. It's obviously very much not, but you have this bright, colorful, funny movie with your main character who gets the advantage in a fight in a police evidence room by taking a huge old whiff of some cocaine. And you're still on her side. And you don't think there's anything bad. I mean, that's one thing. The other thing is Journey Smollett. It gave me Journey Smollett. So
Oh yeah,
I'll
I've learned to look at her in a whole new way thanks to Lovecraft Country.
did you finally saw the episode I was talking about? I guess, huh?
Which one? I'm through the season
The
now.
one with her
So.
love scene. I think it was episode 4 or 5.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That's amazing. Um, all right, before I get myself in trouble, The Invisible Man was my number three.
yeah.
We've been trying to do the Universal monsters for years. Leave it to Blumhouse to come out and finally do it right. Taking the lamest of all the Universal monsters, in my opinion, and turning it into something that's not just current, not just believable, but also relevant to, the Me Too movement that's going on, relevant to, toxic masculinity and all that stuff, without feeling, one of the problems a lot of guys have, and myself included to a point, is when you feel like we're being lectured for things we never did. Um, but when the way they did in this movie really kind of showed you what they're talking about and kind of made it more clear without beating you over the head with it. And all this just as a side effect of a really great horror movie. I mean, the best, most shocking, most effective kill scene of the year is in this movie. I
Mm.
won't spoil it, but it's in the middle of a restaurant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, just an amazing job. I'm kind of the only thing that upsets me about this movie is that they didn't that Blumhouse didn't get a contract for all of the monsters right off the top, so they could be contractually obligated to be the only ones that could do it and the only ones that had say on it.
Well,
But
it seems like they're kind of getting them bit by bit now, anyway. So,
yeah, but
um, yeah, and I hear you, man. That was in my number. That was in my top 20 as well.
mhm.
Um, my number three is Promising Young Woman. I swear, the final Sundance movie on the list. I swear. Carrie Mulligan. It's a revenge movie. It's kind of taking its cues from the Me Too and Times Up movements. And when I saw it, my first comment about it was, it is one of those movies that demands to be heard and it won't take no for an answer. It is a movie that holds everyone to account for everything that has gone on leading up to the Me Too and Times Up movements, and it
Right.
holds everyone to account for not doing enough to stop it.
Mhm.
Back when it started and now, it holds everyone to account. And there are no easy answers. There's nothing but gray areas all throughout this movie. Carrie Mulligan's character is deeply flawed. She's a woman who's out there getting revenge. I won't say why because I'm not spoiling this movie for anything.
No.
Um, but she's out there getting revenge on men for and the way she's doing it. Well, I mean, there's a lot of gray area in the way that she is doing it as well. You could say she's in the right. You could say she's in the wrong. You could say the same thing about the guys. And I love the way Emerald Fennell, the director, picks the guys that she goes after. I mean,
Mhm.
it's guys that we perceive as innocent. It's Christopher Mintz-Plasse. It's Luke Greenfield. It's Adam Brody. These
It's
guys
not
that
your
we
frat boy alpha
perceive,
males. Yeah.
yeah, it's these guys that we perceive as dorks and geeks and things like that. But it goes to show, and she's doing it for a purpose. It's to evoke emotion. It's to play on your feelings, your preconceived notions, and that's what this movie does really, really well all the way throughout.
Mhm.
So yeah, and Carrie Mulligan. I've heard some people. In fact, there was a critic who criticized the film because Carrie Mulligan's not sexy enough for the role, and it's like
They're missing the point of the entire
it's
film.
the entire goddamn point. But even so, that's such like a he sounds like one of the guys this movie is like specifically targeting.
Well,
It's just ridiculous.
and that's
But
what scares me because that means that the guys that could learn something from this are just not even capable of understanding the words
some
when
of
they
them
come
aren't.
near their ears. Yeah, I
Some
mean
of them aren't.
it's
Some of them
crazy.
aren't. And sadly, some of them are high profile film critics.
Yep. And the thing, and I don't know if I talked about this when we reviewed it the other week, but the thing that I really enjoyed about this movie is that now it's hard not to turn this stuff into a witch hunt sometimes, but I think people often forget that the bad guys aren't just the ones that do it, but they're one of my favorite quotes of all time is that the best way for the triumph of evil is for a good man to do nothing. So all the enablers, all the people that stand by and watch, I mean, that can be applied to police brutality, can be provided to Me Too, it can be applied to any of that stuff. And
Right.
and they took the time to point that out without saying all men are pigs and disgusting. Well, kind of. My number two was Da Five Bloods. I never know how to say duh. I don't want to sound like a cheesy white dude. Like duh, Five Bloods.
I
But
got news. I got news for you.
what? I
You sound like
challenge.
a
Yeah, I
cheesy
know.
white dude, no matter what.
I accept it. I embrace it. I need my bow tie, my pocket protector. Yeah. So, Da Five Bloods, the Spike Lee movie. This I love Vietnam era war movies. I love I always forget the name of the damn movie, and I love it. Dead Presidents. So a big fan of that movie back in the day. This is along that vein, kind of. It's Chadwick Boseman's second to last performance. Just such a good movie. The fact of
Can
what
we just talk about what a great year he had for a final year?
I mean, it does it
Chadwick
get
Boseman.
better. I mean, it just. I
Between the
mean,
Five Bloods and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, what an
yeah,
amazing year for him. If it's going to be his final year, at least it was a good year to go out on. At least
yeah.
we can say he went out on top and that he didn't, you know, get
It's almost
bogged
like he
down
had
in
his
movies
best
and everything.
commercial year last year or 2019 with Black Panther and Endgame, and then his final year on this earth was his best artistic year. I mean, this is a guy that people just think he's Black Panther. This is a guy that you know cut his bit on doing highly artistic biopics of some of the biggest
That,
names in African
that
American
actual phrase,
history.
cut his bit.
I was hoping you wouldn't pick up on that because I couldn't think of the phrase I was going to say. It's something
You're
cut
trying to
was
say,
an.
you're trying to say cut his teeth.
That's it.
Okay.
Cut his bit. You guys can use that if you want. It's trademark Punch Drunk Critics.
The
Um,
Five Bloods. Talk about the Five Bloods. I messed you up, but go ahead and talk about the
no,
Five.
my favorite thing about this movie is I love character actors. Always have, always will. They've always been my favorite part of any movie. That guy stuff. Delroy Lindo is one of those guys, and I felt like in his 57 years or whatever in the industry, he finally got a chance to really really shine. I know I'm probably overlooking 50 of his screen credits where he was really the man, but I felt like Spike Lee recognized that Delroy Lindo has always been kind of overlooked, and always put in that secondary place and gave him his chance to really show what he can do, and he did it.
It's a whole
Um,
movie of character actors who are really phenomenal.
yeah,
Geez, Clark Peters, from The Wire and Red Hook Summer, and
yep.
Norm Lewis, and um, the guy whose name
All the
I
old guys basically were all the old versions of the guys, I guess you could say, were big time character actors. And now I hate myself because when you said Clark Peters in The Wire, I was like, the whole time I was watching it, I mean, I knew him from Three Billboards, I knew him from John Wick, but I was like, I know him from somewhere else too, and I didn't even put The Wire in there. I got to rewatch that anyway. So that's my, and personally, I like the heist aspect of this. My favorite Spike Lee is, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I think the dude's got untapped, amazing potential in heist movies. I mean, Inside Man was an astounding movie. I mean, it was the twist was perfect, everything like that. And he just hasn't done a ton of those. And he's really, really good at war movies too. I mean, his other war movie, what was it called? Miracle at St. Anna was really, really good. And this kind of combines Inside Man. You didn't like Miracle at St. Anna?
know.
I haven't watched it like 10 years, so maybe not. But I remember liking it a
In
lot.
fact, that's what I was scared of when he said he was going to have when he was going to do the Five Bloods. Like, oh no, because I was like, oh no, don't.
I wish I
No,
trusted myself more than I trusted you because I'm always second guessing myself when you say that stuff. Because
it's
it's,
fine
it's
that you like Miracle Santa. There's plenty of people that
no,
do.
I'm just trying to
I,
remember because it's been years since I've seen it. But the Five Bloods kind of in a way combines Miracle Saint Anna and Inside Man with the Spike Lee trademark. So that was one of my second favorite movie of the year.
and these last two movies for me are movies that we've talked about in just the last couple of weeks, so I'm not going to really dwell on either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But my number two was One Night in Miami,
Mm.
Regina King's directorial debut, about a fictional quote unquote. Well, I guess it's fictional. I mean, they did actually meet, but the encounter
We
was
don't know what actually
fictional.
happened.
Yeah, the encounter was fictional between Malcolm X, Cassius Clay, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown. Phenomenal film. Based on a stage play. It never feels stagey, though. And that's just something that's really hard for directors to pull off, and she's managed to pull
Mm-hmm.
that off in her debut. It speaks to her talent and why she's probably going to be nominated for Best Director, and this is probably almost assuredly going to be nominated for Best Picture. It's a movie that deals with race and power and fame and what is, as a black celebrity, a man of power, what is your responsibility um, to fight for social causes? What's your responsibility to
Mm-hmm.
fight for civil rights? Do you owe anybody anything? What do you do? What do you do with the power that you have? And that's a fascinating debate that rages on even now. All these years later, it's a debate that'll never go away, especially amongst people who find themselves in the minority. So yeah, it's a really tremendous film. And I'm just going to go ahead and say my number one because, like I said, I'm not
Yeah.
going to dwell on it either because we just so recently talked about it. And I feel like I've talked about it a lot on the show, and that's Nomadland, my number one. Chloe Zhao's film, Frances McDormand, tremendous as a woman who goes out and becomes an American nomad in the wake of the economic collapse. And it's just a movie that's just so genuine, so powerful, has such breadth and depth to it. It echoes our society today while saying new things as well. And Frances McDormand is just tremendous. I think she is going to win Best Actress again for it. Just an amazing movie, amazing film.
Yeah, I mean I think this is going to be the first year ever that we've got no crossover between your 10 and my 10, unless I missed something. Um,
Other than Possessor,
oh, Possessor, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we got one
yeah.
movie,
Other
and
than
that's
Possessor, yeah.
probably the last movie I would have thought that we would have both had on our list. Um, the Gentleman is my number one film of the year. It's I know
Yeah, that's
probably not.
definitely not on my list.
Yeah,
Did you do your number two? What's your number two?
my number two is The Five Bloods.
Okay.
Stop making me
Okay.
say
No,
it.
you're right. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Number one is just Gentleman. That is interesting.
It is, and if you had asked me right after I saw it, I would have said it'd be in my top 10. Would it have been number one? I don't know, but I've watched it two or three more times.
I've
I
still never
just
seen it.
really,
I've still never seen it.
it's I love Guy Ritchie. I mean, I loved King Arthur, the King Arthur movie with Charlie Hunnam because
You're
I
that
love Guy
guy.
Ritchie. Yeah, yeah, I'm that guy because I'm just absolutely enamored with his dialogue and the way it's delivered, particularly that the way Charlie Hunnam delivers it, and he is been the Johnny Depp to his Tim Burton, and hopefully will be for a while because they've got something locked up there that is just really special. I mean, this is this is tentpole Guy Ritchie dialogue. He's writing at the top of his game. You have a great story that you don't see where it's coming from. You have this, the whole thing's set up in flashback kind of with framed in a talk between Hugh Grant and Charlie Hunnam, and Hugh Grant's just amazing in it in his role as this journalist. Um, and it's really really good. I mean, even Matthew McConaughey, who plays the American who moved to London and has become a weed kingpin or whatever. I mean, it's a little dated because now that with weed being legal everywhere, it doesn't seem like why would these gangsters be there. But it's got all of the hallmarks of a Guy Ritchie movie, and it does everything perfectly, and it's the best dialogue he's written. So,
So
um,
what you're saying to me is The Gentleman is a better movie than Mank.
no, I'm saying
What you're t-
I like
what you're telling me is that The Gentleman is a better movie than Nomadland. That
I'd like to refer you.
it is a better film than One Night in Miami. I just want to make sure that we got this straight, so
Sure,
that when people come and ask us, and I can say yes,
you can refer them to.
John believes that The Gentleman is a better movie than One Night in Miami
You
and
can
Nomad.
refer them to
Yes, he
10
does.
minutes and 30 seconds into this podcast, where I issued a disclaimer that these were my favorite movies of the year, not necessarily the technical or best. And I even said there that I had shitty taste. So,
Okay.
caveat emptor, as it were.
I'm just letting you know what the response will be. It's just,
Yeah, I don't
so
care.
The Gentleman is better than, okay.
If they're surprised by that, they haven't been
The
watching the
Gentleman's
show
better
very
than
much.
The Gentleman is better than Minari. Okay, that's what we want to know. All right,
Yeah,
thank you. So
my favorite.
that's it. All right.
Alrighty. Well, that's
Are
that's
there
our
any other? Are there
top
any other
20 flick.
things that any other thing? Anything else that came up that you want to talk
No,
about?
I mean, there's some stuff that that we need to cover on Sunday. Ray Fisher for one, but I
Oh
think
yeah,
we can keep this
I'm, I'm
contained.
I was thinking about anything like any other best stuffs. Best stuffs.
Oh,
You know what was interesting about this year for me?
hmm,
My top 20 includes the final movie that I saw in 2020, in 2020.
that is weird.
Yeah, it does not happen often. I watched a movie randomly, and I was like, shit.
Wait, is it one we've talked about?
No,
What is
not
it?
really. It's one that I've known about, and then we never got a chance to review it on the site. It was
Hmm.
my own fault. Me, that's just not doing it and not assigning it to anybody is my own fault, basically. But yeah, it was Love and Monsters
So that
with
was good. Okay.
Dylan O'Brien
Mm-hmm.
and the lovely Jessica Henwick.
Mm.
Um,
I thought you were
yeah,
gonna say the lovely Michael Rooker.
no, Michael Rooker is in it, but no, he's not lovely. But yeah, Love and Monsters is tremendous. It might be the best like romance movie of the year. It's so good.
Wow.
It's so fun. It's such a fun movie, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love it, and I'm not a big fan of Dylan O'Brien either. Although I will admit I liked him in the Maze Runner films.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just so much fun, and it has so much heart to it. The monster stuff is kind of it has sort of a Zombieland vibe to it in some cases too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I watched it and I was like, I gotta put this in here. I had to put this in here. I didn't. I already had my list done basically by that point, and I had to work it in.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in there at number 20. I was like, it has to be in here. So yeah, it's
That's good to know because that's one
didn't
that
have
I've
a lot.
had on my queue for a long time, but I, I'm totally interested in it, but I just never got around to watching it. So I'll have to move it up
Yeah,
in the
you should
priority
definitely check that
list
one out. It's got
for
that.
sure.
Did I mention that has Jessica Henwick in it?
You did. You said that once. I mean, you might have just glossed over it, so I'm glad you said it again.
Yeah, Jessica Henwick from Iron Fist.
Yeah,
Uh,
she is something special.
she was also in Underwater this year. You remember that movie?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good movie. I enjoyed that one.
I almost forgot that one came out this year, but I was like,
Yeah.
no, no. I remember going to the theater to see that one. It's like in January.
Right.
That was
So,
short-haired Kristen Stewart. I remember it.
yep.
Okay. Yep.
All
Yeah.
right, folks. We'll wrap this up here. I think we got everything, but we will be back Sunday. Let me bring over our special advertising screen. Remember, until Sunday, well, actually, we usually post on Monday, but site, check us out every day, www.punchdrunkcritics.com. On Twitter, Travis, or we are at PDC Movies. Travis is at Punchy Critic, and I am at Punchdrunk John. On Twitch, are you back on Twitch at all?
No, I need your help with that.
Okay, at cinematic
Have
underscore
you
enforcer.
have you heard anything about the Xbox app again? Is it working yet?
I haven't gotten anything from him. I'll have to check that out again. I
I mean,
honestly haven't checked
I'm
it for
wondering
a
I'm
few
wondering
weeks.
if the app in general is working yet. Like, I wonder if they set it back up yet.
I like it honestly since the Christmas break. I haven't got a chance to look back into it, but I'll put that at my list. But hey, look, here's the
Yeah,
important thing,
we need
guys.
to make Twitch. We need to make Twitch more of a. We need to make Twitch like integrate our Twitch into like the weekly podcast if we can at some point
Right,
too.
you and I can beat each other up in Mortal Kombat and talk about that week's movies. Um, the good news is if you subscribe to Travis on Twitch, whenever we get that fixed, you will get a notification on your phone when he goes live. So at cinematic underscore enforcer for any tips, questions, anything you want to relay to us, or if you want to try your hand at writing, we're always looking for good writers. Info at punchdrunkcritics.com. Until next time, folks, I'm John.
I'm Travis.
We are out of here.